This conference will now be recorded.
So in this class, we'll discuss about decision rules. Okay, so decision rules itself, by the name itself, we can able to understand these are to apply some conditions. Okay, there will be many decision rules in PRPC like decision table, decision tree, fork, map. Likewise, there will be many decision rules, and all these rules are for applying some conditions only. Based on the conditions, certain action has to be taken, and that will be decided based on these decision rules. Okay, so we have already seen applying conditions using some when rules as well as condition expression. Okay, the what is the purpose of decision rules now? So if I'm trying to go for when condition or condition expression, all the time we will be getting only value as true or false, meaning we should be getting only one value based on the condition. It might be the true or false only. But if I just want to have any other specific conditions, like if male is equal, sorry, if gender is equal to male and age is equal to greater than 21, or age is equal to 21 to 20, 30, let us say, then I want to get some output like policy start amount is equal to 5,000, let us say. Okay, if male is equal to, if gender is equal to male, and if it age is between 20 to 30, I should be getting one output for this property like policy start amount should be 5,000. And suppose if gender is equal to male and if age is greater than 30, if I want to get the output value as 10,000, starting amount should be like 10,000. So likewise, we cannot able to get out different values with this when conditions, but with decision rules we can able to get the specific values, and we can able to get the values other than true or false also. Okay, so we will be having many decision rules like decision table, decision tree, we'll be having map rules, we'll be having fork. Okay, so these kind of things we'll be having, and we can able to call these decision rules, sorry, we can able to call this from many places. So the first thing what we can able to do is we can able to call this from decision shape. If I just open the flow rule, so if I just open the flow rule, I can able to add one decision shape here. So using this decision shape, I can able to call any of the decision rule within that, and I can able to apply some conditions, and I can able to get the desired output. Okay, so if I just take one decision table or decision shape here and mark it somewhere like this. Okay, so I can able to call any of the decision rules here. I can able to go with Boolean expression or decision table for any of things. So these are all the decision rules, of which decision table and decision tree are very widely used, and we can able to go for map value also. Suppose if I just select decision table, what it is expecting, it is expecting us to create one decision table rule separately, and that has to be called from this decision shape. So that is what we are understanding. And if I'm trying to call one decision tree, so based on the business requirement, we will be applying the conditions by using decision table or decision tree or map values. We can able to make use of any of these rules. And if I'm trying to call this decision tree from the decision shape, what it is asking, it is asking us to select one rule. Rule meaning one separate decision tree rule has to be created, and it has to be called into this decision shape. If I'm trying to go for map value, even then we have to call. So what are all the rules we are seeing here? All the rules are to be created separately, and those are to be called from many places. So one such place is decision shape, and I can able to call these rules like decision table or decision tree from data transforms, from the activities, or within another decision rules. Likewise, we can able to make use of these decision rules from many places. And important thing here is if I just go for fork, fork is also one of the rule where we can able to call this from decision shape. If I just select the fork, so is it asking for any of the rule to be selected? So for all other things, it will be having one rule to be given here. If we go for decision table, tree, or anything, it will be asking us to select the rule name, meaning that that rule has to be created separately and it has to be called here. If I go to the fork, it will not be asking for any rule. I can just just go on, click on submit directly. How PRPC will be understanding how the decision should be taking here. Okay, So the thing here is whenever we are going for fork, it has to be given with some when conditions. So if I just connect like this, let us say I'm trying to make some modifications here. So, so if my requirement is this, okay. So based on the customer details values, if we are getting the correct input, if I'm getting the expected input, then I can able to route this to route the work object ID to this direction, or I can able to route this to direct red color stage. Okay. So based on the decision what it is taking here, work object has to be routed either in this path or in this path. So the decision has to be taken by one of the decision rule that has to be defined here. If I go with decision table or decision tree, I have to create those rules separately, and I have to define the conditions within that rule. And based on the output, we will be getting some value, and that value will be used in this decision shape, and it will be routing the work object ID. But if I'm going for fork, it is not asking us to select any of the rule. Then how PRPC has to consider which work object, which path it has to take. If I just run the work object now, it will be initially showing this section, and after this it will not be showing this one. Why? Because this is not directly connected. In between, it has to take one decision based on the conditions, based on the input values what we are providing. So based on the based on the input values, it has to go in this way or in this way. Okay. If I'm going for fork, we have to apply the conditions in the connectors. Okay. If I just click on the connector, it will be asking us to create one when condition. Okay. I have to create one when condition here as well as here. Okay. If I'm trying to go for one more connector, there also I have to give one when condition. So if any of the when condition is true, then work object will be going in that way. Okay. So for the fork, we have to go for when conditions rules created, and for any other rule we can directly create those rules. Like decision table, we have to create one rule, decision tree that has to be created separately, and it has to be called in the decision shape. Okay. And based on this decision shape, we can able to see that it is having one input and three outputs. So this will be one output, this will be one output, and this will be another output. But this is not exactly true. We can able to have one input, and we can able to get multiple outputs. If I'm going for decision tree, as I told you, I can able to add multiple conditions like this one. If gender is equal to male and if age is equal to 20 to 30, I want to set one property value like policy start amount is equal to 5,000. If gender is equal to male and if age is greater than 30, then policy start date, minimum policy start date should be 10,000. And I can able to go for multiple conditions. So based on these two values I will be entering in the screen number one itself. Okay. So based on these two values, I may get any of the output like amount is equal to 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 or anything. Okay. So don't think that we will be getting only three outputs based on these decision values. We may be getting multiple as per the conditions defined in the corresponding decision rule. Okay. So now we'll discuss about decision table. Clear? So now let us discuss about decision table. So decision table can be created under decision category. So if I just right click on this decision, so it can be created here like this decision table. So decision table and tree, map and fork, these will be very widely used, of which decision table and tree will be very important. So I'm trying to create something like test. Okay. So this is how decision table will be looking like. So by the name itself, we can able to see everything seems to be looking like a table. Okay. Here we can able to add multiple conditions. So considering the same thing, like if gender is equal to male and if age is 20, then I want to set one property value to 5,000. Okay. Meaning it has to just horizontal things. What we are seeing here, this will be applying the conditions. If gender is equal to male and age is equal to 30, I have to set one property. Meaning I'm trying to just check for the combination of two different properties within this table. Okay, all the conditions what we're trying to put within this decision table will be else if, otherwise in this format only. Okay, if I want to add multiple conditions, just add it like this. Okay, here I can able to just check for 10 properties, sorry, 10 conditions. So first condition it will be checking here, it will be returning one value. If it is true, it will be returning this one. And if it is false, it will be just checking the second condition. And the properties, what are the properties I want to apply for conditions, I can able to add it here. So under the conditions tab, we should be adding the properties. So just click here. If I'm adding something like gender, so save this. So if gender is equal to male, if gender is equal to male, and if you want to add one more condition here, then click on insert, and you can able to add one more thing called age. Likewise, you can able to include multiple properties and the multiple combination of conditions. Okay, if age is 20, or if you want to go for range, you can able to do that. So if age is between 20 to 30, then I want to set him the ball, I want to set the amount to be 5,000 minimum amount, let us say. Okay, if it is of male and age is between 30 to 40, and starting amount should be 7,000. And if it is female, if it is like 22 or 18 to 25, I want to go with starting amount of 3,000, let us say. So now if I just create the decision table like this, likewise we can able to add multiple things here. If you want to delete, we can able to delete that. Okay, so if I just add one decision table like this, and if I'm trying to call it from decision shape, I can able to call this decision table from multiple places. I can able to call this from decision shape, or I can able to call this from another decision table also. I can able to call this from decision tree, and I can able to call this from declare expressions. I can able to call this from data transforms and activities also. Okay, so these are all the places where I can able to call this decision rule. The decision table or decision tree, I can able to call from all these places. Suppose if I'm trying to call it from an activity or any place, if I'm trying to call it from an activity, so in activity we can able to call this decision table using a method called property map decision table. So that is the name of the method. So if I'm just using that method, if I'm just giving this as a parameter, then this decision table will be executed, and it has to return one value, right? It has to return only one value based on this condition. Not all the conditions will be true, only one condition will be true. Okay, so based on the condition, what it is executing, it has to return one value. So return value will be 5,000, or return value will be 7,000, it might be 3,000. But when we are going with when conditions, return value will be either true or false only. Okay, but here I can able to go with user defined return values. So that is one advantage. And here we can able to just check for the combination of properties, and each and every property, I mean each and every column will be considered like an AND operator. Okay, if gender is equal to male, I will not be directly returning the value of 5,000. It has to be written only if it is male and if the age is between 20 to 30. Okay, and if I'm trying to add multiple conditions here, age, gender, and date of birth, if you want to just check for the multiple properties, all the properties should be true, meaning each and every column will be acting like an AND operator. So, and the horizontal things, the rows will be considered like an conditions. So if the first condition is true, then automatically return value will be given like an 5,000. And whenever the return is true, whenever this particular value is getting returned, then decision table execution will be stopping then and there. It will be returning to the previous calling meaning from where I'm calling this decision table. I can able to call this decision table from multiple places. If I'm trying to call this from activity, and if the second condition is getting true, then automatically it will be returning 7,000. So the return value like 7,000 uh, will be carried to the previous rule calling, that is like an activity. It, for sure it has to return only one value. So if the first condition is true, it will be returning that value and it will be stopping the execution. Suppose if the first condition is failing, then only it will be continuing the second execution. So the second condition, even that is failing, it will be checking for the third. If all the conditions are failing, it will be just returning the value what is mentioned in the otherwise. Okay. no value or something. So minimum value should be 10,000. So if no conditions are getting satisfied, by default it should be returning with a value of 10,000. Okay, so all the conditions here in the decision table will be given with if, else if and otherwise only, and all the conditions are to be acting like an AND operator. I can able to go for multiple conditions also. All the conditions should be true. If all the conditions are true only, it will be returning the value. Once the value is getting returned, then execution of this decision table will be stopped. It will be returning to the previous value. So whenever the return is true, then automatically execution has to be stopped. Not only here, anywhere. So when we are working with validations like edit validation, so we are writing some extra Java code for the age validation, right? If the age is 18, okay, so if the age is less than 18, what it has to do, it has to throw some error message, then it will be returning the true, meaning we should not be executing the rest of the part, should not be executing whether age is greater than 60 or not. Okay, it has to return the true then and there. So once it is once it is making return value as true, it will be stopping the execution and it will be going to the previous rule from where this is being called. Okay, the same concept here also. If any one of the condition is getting true, it will be returning to the previous condition, sorry, previous rule from where this is being called, and with this return value. If none of the conditions are true, then it will be returning this value which is defined in the otherwise. All the conditions are to be acting like an AND operator here, and I can able to call this decision table from multiple places. Okay, so this return value can be either hard-coded values, or I can able to give the property reference values also. I can able to define like this also. Okay, so return values can be hard-coded values, property reference values, or function return values also. So if I just click on this expression builder, function library has to be opened, and I can able to include any of the function here like current date time or anything. Okay, so I can able to return any of the value like hard-coded value or the property reference or the function values also. And for sure it will be returning only one value at a time. And suppose if you want to make this to be selected by as per the property reference, meaning here in the return value I'm trying to enter some amount, and here also I can able to enter some amount. But if you want to restrict these values not to be entered manually, if you want to make this to be selected from the property reference, then what we have to do is we have to go to results tab. Okay, if I go to the results tab, I can able to make modifications to the return value. So go to the results tab, and it is asking us to select something like results defined by the property. So what should be the results? So results are to be defined by one of the property. Here the result value I am defining. As a developer, I am defining all this value. But as per the business requirement, what they will be doing is they will be asking us to create one drop down value or so, and there I will be having all the properties included in the local list. And those, once the property has been defined there, automatically it will be showing the values from that local list only. So if I'm just selecting something like gender, let us say, and if we go to table, what we have to see, so in the return value has to be written based on the property, not by the hard coded value. If we just select this, so if I just select this, after defining it in the results tab, what we are getting, we have to get the value selected from the drop down only. I can able to select either male or female. What is the thing that has been defined in the property in the result tab, only the return value will be written in that one. Suppose in this kind of requirement, if you want to have these values like 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, so then you have to create one property for the policy start date, sorry, like an policy starting amount, and there you can able to create one property. There you can able to go for one drop down, and there you can able to add all the local list values. So from the local list value only we should be selecting. Okay, so these kind of restrictions also can be made. If you want to have the return value defined by the property, then we have to go to the results tab, and we have to define the property here. Okay, once if any of the return value is true, so if my first condition is true, I will be returning one value here like 5000 or so. And if that return value is true, then if you want to perform any other extra property set, even then that we can able to define it here. So if I just expand this, I can able to see something like this one. So the return value is male in this case. So in the previous discussion, if the return value is 5000, then what I can able to do, I can able to select the value as 5000 here, and then I can able to go for some property set like uh, additional coverages, additional policy coverages as true, like this. We can able to go for something like this. Full insurance. True. We can able to define something like this. We can able to set some property values if I'm getting the corresponding return value. Okay, so the return values are to be defined by the property level, then you have to define it in the results tab, and if any of the result is true, we can able to do the property set also. Okay, so if the amount is like in 10,000 or so, if the return value is 10,000, if you want to make these properties to set, we can able to do that. If the return value is 5,000, let us say, then you can able to reset it. We can able to go for additional coverages like false and full insurance as false. Okay, so these kind of things can be done based on the return value. So these questions they will be asking in interview. Okay, clear? And as I told you, by default we have to get only one return value. Once the value is getting written, automatically it has to stop the execution and it has to go back the previous calling. So the same thing when we're working with activities also. Suppose if I'm trying to call one activity within another activity using call, branch or queue, what it has to do, it has to, a parent has to wait for the child activity execution. Once the child activity execution is completely done using call method, let us say, once the child activity is completely done, it will be returning back to the previous activity. It will be returning back. Once that is completely done, it will be having a return value as true, then automatically it will be returning back from wherever it is being called. The same thing, whenever the decision table is getting some return value, if any of the condition is true, then automatically it has to go back to the previous rule from wherever this is being called with that return value. So if it is like a decision shape wherever it is being called from, then this will be going back to the decision shape and it will be setting the return value as true, and based on this return value I'll be we can able to redirect the work object to the corresponding path. Okay, so by default we'll be having only one return value, and if at all if you want to make all the steps to be executed, so if the first step is true, return value will be true and it will be skipping off all the steps. This is what we have discussed. And if at all, if I want to make each and every step to be executed, what we have to do is we have to go to the results tab and we have to click on this, evaluate all rows. So if I just click on this, what it will be doing? It will be converting everything into when conditions. So earlier, all the conditions are with else if, and otherwise, right? Now, if I want to evaluate all the rows, then it will be changing it to when condition. Okay, and here we are not having any return value. Earlier we are seeing something like a return value. So by this, what we can able to understand, we can able to return value only if any of the condition is true. If at all, if you want to validate all the rows, return value will not be applicable. Okay, all the conditions will be turned to when, and we can able to go for some actions here. So return value will not be applicable for when conditions. Okay, we can able to go for action, go for some actions. So we can able to have multiple actions under this. So I want to set something like property 1, property 2, property 3, let us say. So if whenever I'm executing this decision table, what it has to do, it has to just check for the first condition. So in the first condition, all the 4 conditions are true. So if all the 2 conditions are true, then what it has to do, it has to perform something kind of an property set here. Okay, so property 1 I can able to set the value as 1, and property 2 as 1, and property 3 as 1. let us say. Okay, so even if the first when condition is true, it will be again evaluating the second one. Even this is true, it will be just performing the property set here, it will be evaluating the second one, third one. Likewise, all the when conditions will be executed. Okay, so even if the last when condition is also true, it will be setting the value like 777, let us say. Okay, so finally at the end of this decision table execution, property 1 value will be having like 7, property 2 like 7, property 3 like 7. Okay, what are all the values that are being updated here that will be overwritten with the latest values if all the when conditions are true? If any of the when condition is not true, if only the last one is true, or even if that is not true, what are the thing we are defining in the otherwise, those values will be set to these properties. Okay, clear? So these all they'll be asking in interviews. So if you want to evaluate multiple records, we have to check this one. So if I'm just checking this, all the things will be changed to when conditions. Earlier it will be like an if and else if, and we'll be having written value for that. But now if I want to evaluate all the things, I cannot able to have multiple written values. Instead, we can able to have multiple actions. Okay, we can able to go for multiple actions. If I'm trying to get the multiple actions, then there I can able to go for something kind of an property set. Okay, clear? This is all about decision table, and we can able to call this decision table from many places. I can able to call this from decision shape, that is what we have seen, and we can able to call from activities using property set, sorry, property map decision table, and we can able to call this from uh, another decision table also. So for that, what I have to do, I have to go to the expression builder. Okay, so this is not allowing me. So if I'm trying to define the properties as per the results defined in here, if I want to select any of the return value as per the results here, then I cannot able to go for expression builder. So if there is no expression builder, I cannot able to call another decision table. Okay, so this is the expression builder, and within this expression builder we'll be having one function library open. There we can able to have one function like px evaluate decision table. Okay, so there will be one OOTB function, and this function is useful for calling one decision table. Okay, and wherever we use this expression builder, we can able to call this function. I can able to make use of this function from declare expressions or the data transforms, right? There I can able to call the decision table. And similarly, there will be one more function like px evaluate decision tree. So this function is meant for calling decision tree within this function. Okay, and we can able to call this from another decision tree also, and I can able to call this from another decision table. That's because of this, and we can able to call this from decision shape also. So this is all about decision table. Any doubts so far? Clear?
Yeah.
Kulani, you also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let me tell the disadvantage with this decision table. So the disadvantage here is all the time for each and every condition, I should be just checking with the restricted number of properties. So in the first if condition, I can able to just check for age and gender. And in the second condition, I can able to just check for age and gender. So what are all the properties we are defining as the conditions that has to be applied for all the conditions. So different conditions cannot be checked with the different combination of properties. Okay, suppose in the first if condition, if I want to just check if gender is equal to male and if age is equal to 21, okay, if that is true, I want to just check for some other conditions. So in the second condition, if that is true only, if I'm trying to just check for the second condition, then if he is already existing customer or not, if he is existing, if he is registering with us within less than 1 year or not. So these kind of extra properties, if you want to just check in different combinations and different conditions, that will not be possible here. Okay, so in the first condition I have to go with two properties what I'm defining here, and in the second condition also I have to define with two properties, and in the third condition also I have to just check with the two properties. So that is the reason we will be going for decision tree. So decision tree purpose here is we can able to have some other extra features when compared to decision table, where in the first condition I can able to go for condition for two properties, and in the second condition I can able to just check for three different properties, and in the fourth condition if I want to check for five different properties, even then that is possible. So by the name itself we can able to understand it's a decision tree where there will not be any specific structure for this. So just like in decision table, if I just define the conditions, it has to be common for each and every condition, but with decision tree that will not be the case. So that is the advantage with the decision tree. Okay, so now let me show you how to uh, let us discuss the same about all this decision tree. So this also can be created under decision category, and this decision tree also can be called from many places. We can able to call this from decision shape, activity, decision table, so all these places. So this is how decision tree will be looking like. So if we just click here to add the condition, so I can able to add one condition. If that one condition is true, suppose if gender is equal to male. Okay, if gender is equal to male, I can able to return one value. Okay, so here we'll be having options like return, continue, and otherwise. But earlier in the decision table, what we have seen, if the condition is true, we'll be having only return value. Okay, but here we'll be having either return, continue, or otherwise. If I just give return, then it will be automatically returning to the previous rule from wherever this is being called. Okay, and if I want to continue, if the first if condition is true, if I want to again continue, which will not be possible in the decision table, if I want to continue, just click select continue. Okay, if I just select continue, what it is showing, it is asking us to select some other conditions. If age is 20, then you can able to either return value or you can able to continue also. So if I'm still trying to continue, okay, so here we can able to add another condition. So within this first condition I'm trying to have three different values. Okay, so within this first if condition I'm trying to have multiple values here, and in the second value I'm trying to have another value, and in the third condition I'm trying to just check for another condition. Okay, so different conditions are, sorry, different properties we can able to just check within one if condition, and all the things will be having like an if only. But here we are trying to have it like if else if and otherwise, but here it will be showing everything like if nested if only. Okay, and if I want to return the value I can able to return, or if I want to continue I can able to do that, or if I want to go to otherwise also I can able to do that. Okay, so even here also the return value might be either hard code value, we can able to give some hard coded value, or we can able to give some property reference values, or we can able to go for uh, okay, that's it. We can able to have the hard coded values, or we can able to go for the property reference values. One disadvantage with this decision tree is there will not be any expression builder here. Okay, so there we have expression builder where I can able to make use of the OOTB functions, but in the decision tree there will not be any expression builder. So if there is no expression builder, then what is the concept of calling these two rules? Okay, so using expression builder only, I can able to call another decision table or decision tree into this decision rule. Okay, into the decision table, if I want to call another decision table, how I will be calling? I'll be using expression builder, and I will be using one function called px evaluate decision table. And if I want to call one decision tree into decision table, what I want to do, I want to go to expression builder, and I will be using one function like px decision evaluate decision tree. Okay, but now if I want to call any of these decision rules into decision tree, how can I do that? Since there is no expression builder here, how can I make use of these things? How can I make use of px evaluate decision table and px evaluate decision tree? So this will be interview questions for you. So in that case, what we have to do is we have to go to configuration tab. If I just go to configuration tab, there will be something like yellow selection of call decision option. So if I just select this, and if we go back here, what we can able to see, we can able to see some other options here. Earlier we have seen only three options like return, continue and otherwise. Now we can able to see some other options to select other decision rules. Okay, so if I want to select one decision table within this decision tree, what I have to do, I have to go to configuration tab and then I have to check one checkbox there. But with the decision table, there will be option like results tab there. But here we'll be having something like configuration tab. We can able to see the results tab here, and here we'll be having configuration tab. Within this configuration tab, we can able to go for this option. If I just go for this option, I can able to call another decision rules within this decision tree. Okay, for sure there will not be any expression builder here. If at all, if you want to make use of the expression builder to get the current system date or anything, then what we have to do is there is no option for us. We have to create one decision table first. There we have to make use of the expression builder, and the decision table has to be called into this decision tree by making this change in the configuration tab. Okay, so that is the only option for us now. So if the return value, so based on the return value, if you want to set any of the property defined values, even then we can able to do that. So this section is completely same here as well as in the decision table. Okay, if I just define any of the property, the results of this property will be defined in the return values. And if any of the return value is true, if you want to set the corresponding properties also, we can able to do that. Okay, so we can able to call this decision tree from activity also, that is with property map decision tree, and we can able to call this from decision shape, and we can able to call this from another decision rules also. So clear? Any doubts so far? Okay. So the important advantage here is we can able to have multiple conditions within multiple different conditions will be having different properties. So in the first condition I can able to go for two properties, and in the second condition I can able to go for another single property. So that will be advantage. And the disadvantage here is we cannot able to have the expression builder. So if there is no expression builder, if you at all if you want to make use of any of the over function, then what you have to do is you have to create the decision table only, then you have to call it into here. Okay, so let me quickly tell you about the difference between decision table and tree. So decision table will be having everything like if, else if and otherwise, so on otherwise. And decision tree will be having everything like if nested if and otherwise. Okay, so this is one difference. And second thing is we can able to call this decision table and decision tree using expression builder. Okay, within the decision table we can able to call other decision rule using expression builder, but within this decision tree, since there is no expression builder, we cannot able to call it directly. We have to go to configuration tab and we have to select it there. Okay, so if at all if you want to just check for the very simple logics, we can able to go it directly from here. So decision table can be used for the simple logics where gender is equal to male and age is equal to this one. I want to return this value. Okay, so this will be much simple when compared to applications of decision tree. So within this decision tree, if you want to just go for multiple conditions, so where the complex seems to be very complicated, so where the logic seems to be complicated, then you can able to go for decision tree. Okay, so based on the business requirement, we'll be going for decision table or decision tree, and we can able to call this from activities also. Okay, so now we'll work on one small requirement. Based on that, you'll be getting clear idea. So we have already made modifications when we're working with declare on change about getting the hospital name based on the hospital code, right? So here, if I just enter the hospital code, automatically hospital name value will be populated. So this is done because of obj open. So using obj open, we will be just calling one. We'll be just interacting with the data table and we'll be getting the data. Okay, so that is one way. Suppose if at all, if I want to implement the same using decision table, okay, so even then that is possible. So first let me create one decision table with the corresponding conditions. So if the hospital code is this, I want to return one value. The hospital code is another thing, I have to return another value. So if at all, if I'm trying to have these kind of things, if I want to implement it using decision table, we can able to do that. So in this approach, what we'll be doing is we'll be implementing declare on change plus running one activity plus how to call this decision table from the activity and getting the output value. Okay, so we'll be redesigning the existing functionality and we'll try to implement the same using decision table. Okay, so here we're trying to run one activity, right? So with this declare on change, we'll be running one activity. So first let me identify the activity. So during runtime also, if you want to just check what is happening on the screen, you have to put the tracer and check on it. That's it. You need not go to app explorer and see what are the things happening. Why? Because if you go to app explorer and check also, you cannot able to identify anything. So if I just click on, if I just enter some value and click on tab out, I'll be getting this value. How I'm getting this? So first thing what we'll be doing as per our knowledge, we'll be just checking whether there is anything written on this control. Okay, there will not be anything. So we're not calling activity or data transform anything, but how it is executing. So that will be one question. So that will be because of the declare rules only. Okay, so without calling it here, it is running, it is doing some action. So that should be for sure because of the declare rules. So it might be either declare on change for sure. Okay, for that you have to go for if it is like a declare on change, it has to be running one activity. For that you can able to trace the same, put the tracer on, identify the activity name. So this is how we have to debug in the real time. So in the real time, if you are asked to work on this screen where you have to change the where you have to redesign the existing code. Okay, so already implementation is there, this is done with some other rules, and if you want to redesign it and you want to implement with the decision table, we have to identify the existing thing, what it is actually doing. So if it is like an activity, then we have to identify that activity and we have to make some modifications to that, right? So first, to identify the activity, we have to put the tracer and we have to identify. Okay, but in any other cases, we can able to directly just check in the actions of this particular control. There one activity or data transform will be there, but here in this case, it will not be there. Okay, you have to trace it and identify the activity name, and for sure that activity has to be executed using declare on change rule only. Okay, once the activity has been identified, we can able to redesign by removing the data table concept and we have to implement it using decision table. Okay, so I'm just tabbing out. So we can able to identify this is the activity name. So just click on this, automatically it has to be opened in the designer studio. So this is the activity that is responsible for pulling out the data. Okay, so now I want to redesign this. I have to get all this data using decision table. So first let me create one decision table and include all the data. And from there, I have to call this decision table from this activity. So I should not be making any modifications here. By just on changing, for sure activity has to be executed. And that activity has to be calling one decision table. As of now, the activity is calling one data table here. Using obj open, I'm trying to get the data from data table. Now I want to redesign this and I want to get the same data using decision table. Okay, so in order to call the decision table here, I have to go for property map decision table and I have to pass the decision table parameter name. Okay, first let me create one decision table. something like table for hosp code. So here, if the hospital value, the hospital code is like AP1, I have to return one value. If it is like TN1, I have to return another value. Likewise, based on the hospital code, I have to return some values. Okay, here we can able to define the property first. So let me click on this and select the property. So this will be my property, right? So whenever this property is getting true, then I have to return one value. Return values can be directly given as hard coded values also. If at all, if you're trying to, if you want it to be selected from the drop down, you have to return it here. You have to write it here. Okay. So in this requirement, we can directly go for selecting this value. Like we are selecting something like AP1. We can able to import all the data by selecting this also. So whatever the data we have in the Excel sheet, everything can be imported here, and that can be then that can be shown here as well. So if you want to add another condition, I'm giving something like test2. If you want to add another thing, so if you want to add another thing, like and if no values are getting satisfied, we can able to give the hard coded value also. Okay, so I'm just saving this. So you try to work on another example where age value is something like this and and gender is equal to male. If you want to give some discount, if gender is equal to male and if age is between 20 to 25, I want to provide him 10% discount. Okay, and if it is of a male and if it is greater than 25, you can provide him 20% discount. So first you create one property for the discount. There you can able to have the local list values as 10%, 20%, 30%. Okay, so percentage value like 10%, 20%, these should be the prompt values, and it should be having some standard values like 10, 20, 30. If at all if you're selecting like an 10% discount, so that value has to be returning like 10. So in the clipboard we'll be having the value written as in 10, so you can able to use it for the further processing. There you can able to again call the decision tree based on that value, and you can able to apply some discounts also. You can able to perform some mathematical operations also. You can able to explore many things. Okay, I'm just saving it now. So once the decision table has been created, we can able to call this from property activity, right? Like property map decision table. Let me make modifications to this activity. So I need not have page new. I need not have. We can able to create the new activity also, or I can able to make the modifications to the existing activity. If at all, if you are trying to make the modifications to the existing activity in the real time, don't delete any of the activity steps. Why? Because you should be in a position to roll back it as well. So that is the thing, I'm just trying to comment it. Okay, so I'm just commenting it. If you want to delete, if you want to add the new one also, you can able to do that. So I want to go for something like a property map decision table. So what should be the decision table name? So this is my decision table, right? So this decision table, whatever the value that is being written, if I'm selecting something like AP1, so it has to return some value based on this condition. If the hospital code is AP1, it will be returning this value. So where this value has to be returned? This value has to be returned on one property. So I'm selecting the property name. So this has to be returned here. Okay. So property set will be true. I mean, we'll be getting the values out of here, and okay, I can able to save this and let me run it now. You can able to test the same in the case processing also, no issues. So I'm trying to run one case type. So if you're not getting the output, we'll trace it. So I'm giving something like AP1. So tab out. So we're getting the value. Clear, right? So if I just enter something like this, even then we're getting the value. If I enter some dummy data, so what it has to return? It has to return as per the decision table, no results found. Okay. So using this decision table, we can able to have this otherwise condition also, but we cannot able to have this considered as an error message. Okay. If I just click on submit button, it will be carrying to the next screen. It will be considered, it will be moving to the next screen. If at all, if the user is not selecting the proper value, then if you don't want him to be going to the next screen, what you have to do, you have to put some error messages. So if the page is having some error messages, it will not be having submitted. Okay, but in this case, this will not be considered as an error message. This will be considered as one of the value, one of the written value. Okay, so if you want to put the error message based on this, even then we can able to do that. So I can go for on property set message or page set message. Page set message onto the primary page. I'm entering like this. And this has to be executed on the conditional basis, not all the time. So if I just save this will be executed all the time. So which should not be true. And this should be executed only if we are returning this value. If the decision table is returning this value only, then I have to throw the error message. There we can able to go for some when conditions where I can able to make use of the expression builder. The same thing. Like I can able to compare the string value, what I'm trying to get here, if it is like an this one, no details found or not. I'm trying to make use of one function equals ignore case. This is already discussed. Okay. So here I want to select this value, hospitalization code dot hospital name is equal to, earlier we have compared with the blank, right? Now I have to compare this with this one. If it is returning this value only, I have to show some error message. Okay. Submit. So if it is true, I want to execute this when condition, then it should be true. And if it is false, then I have to skip the step. So this step should not be executed if the condition is failing. So save this. Let me refresh. So if I'm trying to go with some good value, I'm getting the values here. If I'm trying to go for some bad values, we can able to see some error messages handled at the page level. Okay. So this is how we can able to restrict the user if he's not selecting the proper values. So in the real time also, we can make use of this decision table from many places. We can able to call this from decision shapes, or we can able to call this from activities or from the another decision rules. We can able to call it from the expression builder as well. Okay. Any doubts? Uma Tulani, clear, right?
Clear.
Uma, you also know?
Hello, clear.
So you try to work on another requirement, like you create one decision table where you can able to have the combination of age property as well as the gender property. If gender is equal to male, okay, and if age is greater than if age is between 20 to 25, then you can able to provide him some discount. Okay, that discount will be like in property return value. You define it in the results tab, and one value will be returned, and that value has to be given in the prompt list, and you have to capture the standard value. So that value will be captured, and you can able to make use of this value for the further processing. So if he's trying to go for a certain amount, if we want to provide him certain discount, we can able to make use of this kind of approach. Okay, clear, right?